is not a good bet financially. In other words, what you're saying to people is, yeah, you don't have too good a job, and we're not so sure you can pay this loan off, but the federal government was demanding that banks make these loans to people who were what the banks would call poor risks. And so we have more and more of these banks. Now, over time, Freddie and Fannie had carried some loans that were bad risk. Over time, and particularly under Clinton's last year, those percentages were kicked up, forcing Freddie and Fannie effectively, because these loans all ended in Freddie and Fannie, to accept more and more loans that were very marginal. Now, for a time period through the Bush years, things worked pretty well because housing prices, as a lot of people remember, really started to go up. In fact, when I came down here as a congressman in 2001, and I take a look back at about 2006 or 7, I'm kicking myself. I'm saying, what was wrong with me? I must be really stupid, because if I'd bought a house when I first came to Congress, it'd be worth twice as much now, because housing prices were shooting up because all kinds of people were dumping money into the liquidity that had been created were being dumped into this housing market. So what happens? As long as that housing market goes up, 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 people think this is a good deal. And so we don't have too big a problem, but all of a sudden, pop, the bubble bursts, housing prices start to come down, and now all of these lousy loans are coming home to roost. The loans by Wall Street were then chopped up in all sorts of little pieces and packaged up with all kinds of other loans and sold all over the world. So this created one whale of an economic mess. What was the start of it? The start of it was the fact that we had these liberal programs trying to suspend the rules of mathematics and saying you can make loans to people who can't afford to pay their loans, and you can just keep doing it, and nobody is ever going to have to pay. Guess who had to pay? You got it right. The U.S. taxpayer had to pay. Now we come back again now. We have this chairman, Barney Frank, who's now in charge of fixing this problem, which he was very comfortable with. Freddie and Fannie are not facing any kind of financial crisis. The more people exaggerate these problems, the more pressure is on the companies, the less we'll see in terms of affordable housing. This turns out that he was just wrong, and now his job is to try and fix it. Well, now we've got ourselves a good economic mess on our hands, and we're starting to have problems with the economy. And we're going to get into what happened next in just a minute. This is a regular whodunit. I hope you'll stay seated and ready to go, but I have my good friend from Louisiana joining me. And Steve, please.
Hi, I want to thank my friend and colleague from Missouri for leading this hour, and I know we've continued to have this conversation and talked about this months ago, back when the original bill came through to do this stimulus package, and President Obama said that he's got to spend more money to get the economy back on track. And I know you're getting ready to talk about Henry Morgenthau, who was Treasury Secretary under Franklin Roosevelt, and he warned back then that spending money and acquiring more debt doesn't get the economy back on track when you're growing the size of government. And it didn't work then, and it's not working now. But of course, now we've got this bailout bill, this permanent bailout bill by Chairman Barney Frank, who, as you pointed out, was defending Fannie and Freddie when they helped create this mess, and Chris Dodd. And they've got this bill that creates a permanent bailout fund, and then it also taxes a lot of our banks who didn't have anything to do with creating this problem in the first place. And in fact, this bill not only will create this permanent bailout fund and will enshrine this whole concept of too big to fail, but it's going to hurt our local banks, the folks that actually played by the rules, that didn't do anything wrong, and now they're going to be at a disadvantage. It's going to be harder for them to give loans to our small businesses and middle-class families who are trying to get by because now they're going to actually create a two-tiered system that favors those big Wall Street fat cats that helped create this problem, that are now permanently too big to